Thank you, member. The member for Cowichan Valley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak in favour of the budget update presented by the government. I will begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territories of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. And I'd also like to commend the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation for his statement yesterday on the United Nations Declaration of Rights of the Indigenous Peoples. I'd also like to acknowledge yourself, Madam Speaker, for the support and encouragement that you give to women to enter into politics. I have personally benefited from that support, and I'm truly grateful. This is a noteworthy budget, and it comes at a noteworthy time in BC politics. Members on both sides of this House are coming to terms with new responsibilities. There has been a significant shift in BC politics that presents new opportunities and challenges for all MLAs. At the same time, our esteemed press gallery are figuring out how to understand and report on the new decision-making processes of a minority government, processes that have been unchanged and unchallenged for decades. All of us, as British Columbians, are witnessing how government can and should work when one party cannot simply ram an agenda through, but is instead learning to work with other parties to build a broader and more inclusive vision for this province. Few predicted that British Columbians would elect a slim minority government in May, an election result that meant that we in the legislature would need to start talking with each other rather than at each other. As a teacher and historian, my first impulse was to look to the past to find a precedent for this new political reality that we find ourselves in. Federally, there have been 13 minority governments in Canada's history. Every province except Alberta has had at least one, and this is BC's third minority government. The last one was in 1952. As our caucus and staff began to explore how other jurisdictions made these arrangements work, one thing became clear. If we could overcome the antagonism that had come to characterize BC politics before this election, we would have a historic opportunity to bring positive change to BC. I believe that this budget update truly is a step in this direction. We have before us a document, Madam Speaker, whose foundation was first introduced by the BC Liberals earlier this year, with the values and priorities of two other parties added to it in the months after the election. The BC Greens ran on a platform that advocated government leadership in the face of a changing planet and a changing economy. We believe that we have an opportunity to capture the imagination of British Columbians with a candid, innovative, and forward-thinking vision for the future. Ours isn't a narrow vision for one part of the province, but instead a call for a new path forward for all communities in BC. In my home, the Cowichan Valley, there is an enormous appetite to see the provincial government step up and invest in what really matters in our lives. Our hospital turned 50 this year, and it is desperately in need of replacing. And Cowichan High is on its last legs. It was built in 1949, and it is not holding up as well as the honourable members in this House who were born before that same year. Our watersheds and riparian areas suffer from the benign neglect and blind faith that was built into the professional reliance model. We have heartbreaking child poverty rates, and like so many communities in BC, we are suffering the impacts of the opioid crisis. And yet Cowichan is extraordinary in its resilience, its strong and interconnected communities, and the determination of people to work together so that all in the community may thrive. The Cowichan District Hospital Foundation and the Cowichan Valley Regional Hospital District have worked to create the conditions for a new hospital. The land is purchased, the concept plan is underway, having been given the go-ahead by the previous Liberal government. School District 79 is working with Vancouver Island University, Cowichan Tribes, the municipalities of North Cowichan and Duncan, and the Cowichan Valley Regional District to create a new model of education, one that connects high school students to post-secondary opportunities in a way that ensures a successful transition for students. The Cowichan Watershed Board, co-chaired by Chief Seymour of the Cowichan Tribes and Chair John Lefebvre of the CVRD, is a model of cooperation and collaboration and creates the foundation for watershed governance. There are many extraordinary initiatives and an abundance of committed citizens who are making Cowichan Valley an incredible place to live. Our hope is that this budget update signals a commitment from the provincial government to come to be a true partner in these initiatives. Too often, Madam Speaker, we speak in broad categories in BC: the South, the North, rural, urban, resource-based, high-tech. These labels divide us rather than unite us, and the categories oversimplify the rich and interconnected fabric of our province. This past summer, I traveled through northern BC, meeting with First Nations, municipal representatives, and community leaders to learn about the challenges and opportunities facing their communities. What I learned, in no uncertain terms, was that there is far more that unites us across BC than divides us. In every community, I heard from people the same hopes, dreams, and aspirations for their communities that we have in Cowichan Valley. Their desire to see thriving and safe schools, their hopes to have efficient hospitals that deliver timely care, their aspirations to see support for seniors who want to stay in their homes and close to their families. I heard across all communities a strong desire to see stewardship and protection of natural resources. For many people, the lack of compliance and enforcement in the resource sectors has undermined trust in both industry and government. I also heard of the benefits in investment in post-secondary education and a strong desire in all communities to see an innovative and diversified approach to economic development. The notion that economic investment in this province only counts when it's an investment in the resource sector is reflected neither in the current reality nor in the emerging economy. An analysis of employment by occupation in the Northwest, based on data from BC Statistics and StatsCan, tells a story that we all need to be paying attention to. Education, professional services, health services, small businesses, finances, science, tourism, and manufacturing account for the vast majority of jobs, while the resource sector accounts for less than 10% of employment. Investment in communities, in schools, in hospitals, in infrastructure, in government services, in post-secondary education. These investments not only create long-term stable employment, they create the kinds of communities that attract further investment. When companies are looking for investment opportunities, schools, hospitals, and services matter. We all want to live and work in vibrant, thriving communities. And I would also suggest that we ideally want stable, well-paid, meaningful employment in our own communities, rather than in far-flung work camps away from our families and friends. One municipal councillor in Terrace had a great idea that would bring together innovation, education, and Economic Development, a renewable energy institute of the Northwest. Imagine a higher learning facility located in the heart of the land where we have the greatest potential for geothermal energy, where students not only learn the skills to work in a new energy economy, but also become the leaders in developing the technology that will move us beyond fossil fuels, a task that is our moral obligation to future generations. We are united across this province, and I believe across both sides of this legislature, by a belief that we need to ensure opportunities, not just for right now, but also for future generations. We need to sustainably manage and protect our resources and our ecological systems, and that in this changing economy, government needs to be taking a greater leadership role in preparing for the changes that are already upon us. We have heard all week from members on both sides of this House of the devastating tolls of the wildfires this summer. And we are hearing daily of the toll of hurricanes, of droughts, of floods. As elected representatives, Madam Speaker, as leaders, we all share a responsibility to future generations. And a part of our responsibility today is to acknowledge the impacts of climate change, to recognize the debt we owe to our children and their grandchildren. The increase in the carbon tax announced in this budget update is one small step and a necessary signal that helps us move back towards climate leadership. Whether it's the changes affecting our workforce and employment or the changes in our climate that will reshape the economic and social fabric of our communities, we must not stick our heads in the sand. We must be bold to call out challenges and create new opportunities. We must embrace a vision for the future of our province that is hopeful, that brings new opportunities, and that rejects the premise that we are divided. This is the BC Green vision. Each party in this House ran on a different vision for our province and put an emphasis on different priorities. In a minority government, these different visions can be brought together to create policies for this province that represent more people and are greater than the sum of their parts. The platform commitments each of us made offer us a starting point from which we can begin to work together to craft a greater vision that can ensure more British Columbians have the opportunity to thrive. How we compose ourselves as elected representatives matters. Only in the legislature, it seems to me, is compromise considered a bad thing. 3 years ago, I brought my high school students to the legislature for a question period session. At the end of a typically raucous session, one student who was from Denmark expressed his incredulity. "Elected leaders are allowed to behave like that?" he said. His reaction has stayed with me. Is this really how we want to demonstrate leadership? Can we do better? Do our words in this chamber always need to be about scoring points, wounding our opponents? Or can we find new paths and new approaches, particularly given the extraordinary challenges we face, not just in our province, but globally? Liberal MP Arnold Chan, who passed away today, in his final address to Parliament said, "I know we are all honourable members, but to treat this institution honourably, I would ask us to elevate our debate, to elevate our practice." I want to express my deepest condolences to the Chan family for their loss and my gratitude to Arnold Chan for his words. This is what we have done in our agreement with the NDP, which was predicated on 5 words: good faith and no surprises. Within these 5 words is a path forward, Madam Speaker, for all of us in this new environment. As we have learned over the past few months, consultation and collaboration are not always easy. But we have also learned that if we agree on shared values, that government should serve the people, that building trust in government matters, and that we have a responsibility not just to the people of BC today, but to future generations, then we can find ways to work through disagreement and even discord. At the root of every strong relationship are 2 simple concepts: trust and communication. We will build more trust with better communication. We need to build trust between each other so that the people of BC can feel more trust in their government and more trust that all MLAs are working together to achieve the best we can for this province. This minority government offers us the opportunity to genuinely reach across party lines and craft policy that incorporates the best of all of our ideas. If we spend less time attacking each other and more time listening and communicating with each other, we might just be able to start trusting one another. This is an exciting story to tell because it does not fit into the old framework of conflict and adversarial relationships. We invite everyone, the press and the public, to challenge us, to ask the hard questions, and also to recognize that we are in a different landscape, in new territory, and that the old narrative of hyper-partisan BC politics no longer needs to always be the defining framework in this House. I have, many times in my life, believed in outcomes that others have told me were impossible. And yet I've held fast to my beliefs, which have been rooted in my values and my true conviction that we will always do better when we find ways to work together. This is my hope, Madam Speaker, and my belief for this House as we move forward in this new and noteworthy time in BC politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member.